Okay everyone, hey, Micah Carter here, and making this quick video just to talk to you about a blackened atomizer and a vaporizer e-cigarette. And of course, every atomizer is different. There's a bunch of different types of atomizers, but basically all of them operate, at least all the ones that I've seen, most of them. I mean, there's certainly probably some different technologies being developed and whatnot and out in the market in different places, but most of them just operate with the same principles of having an atomizer housing, which is just the metal areas around it. It has a little filament type of deal at the bottom sometimes that comes out. In this case, we're not really worried about all that right now, but right now we're just talking about the blackening of the wick material inside. So, and I have some other videos you can look at for some more details on how to make your wicks last longer, how to keep them fresher, better flavor, keep them from building up too much juice, etc. So it's kind of like, there's a few techniques to vaping that we kind of underestimate a lot of times when we start vaping. So this atomizer here comes apart. It's just a small atomizer that goes into an evic VT tank, which is a certain type of, battery, which I have a couple of them right here. Here's one of them with the base of the tank right in here. But anyway, so this atomizer here is kind of blackened, and I'm just talking to people about how to prevent it from happening. It's kind of a subtle thing because what happens is, here I take the top of it off, you can see that the atomizer is kind of black. It's got metal coils in there, but you can't really even tell because they're so blackened with like charred juice that's gotten burnt on there. So ideally you want your wick to be completely clean and white, and we want the metal coils to be, basically like silver, kind of, pretty clean. And I don't know if I have another one that's handy right here to show you, but the idea is you don't want it to get blackened like that. So I don't have another one that's easily able to show you right now, but the thing is, when you have juice in your tank, you want it to flow through there smoothly, and you don't want to be going at too high of a temperature. You don't want to be vaping maybe sometimes too long at too high of a temperature, or you don't want to be burning your wick when it's dry. And it's kind of hard maybe to tell in this video, but the wicking material goes across from one side to the other inside there. Now, on this particular one, I can actually take the cotton out and put a new cotton in, and that's what I'm going to do here real quick. So, you can't do this with every atomizer, but with this one here I can. And in fact, we're going to go ahead and just take a pair of tweezers, and I'm going to take the wicking material out by just taking the tweezers here and gently pulling a little bit of it at a time. I'm going to pull it out because I don't want to damage the coil. And kind of pulling a little hard, but actually it just came out. You can see that material that's in there. It's cotton, and it's kind of blackened. It's gotten charred up because the person that's been using this hasn't been vaping exactly right. There's a couple of subtle techniques that you try to learn when you first start vaping. And that includes what we call dry vapes and so forth. So ideally, you don't ever get your wick quite this black. But I'm going to put a new piece of cotton in here, and just with pieces of cotton, it's just, it's not like this with every atomizer that you can easily re-wick it. But in this case, this one usually can be re-wicked pretty easily. Sometimes they can be damaged during the re-wicking process if you're not careful, or some kind of subtle thing happens. And maybe you can see inside there, I've got a little more wicking material to pull out. See that? See that right there, how black that is? So there's more of it right there. And so I'm taking that out there. And you can see there's some coils in there. You can barely kind of tell. Like I said, it's not the best camera situation, but those metal coils are all charred with black stuff that we need to get off of there. So what I can do is put it back into the atomizer base of the tank. And I'm going to put this... See, this mod here is temperature control. I'm going to put it into wattage mode and just kind of gently heat up the coil and cook some of that stuff off of there. So, and I'm going to take some paper here, just kind of dry it all a little bit gently by dabbing all the excess juice that's kind of on here because I took the tank off. You can see how it's on there now. And you can see we have front settings on this deal here where we can go ahead and it's reading a 0.53 ohmage, which is because this is a 0.5 titanium atomizer, and I have it on 450 titanium temperature degrees, right? So right now I'm going to change the mode by clicking it, and turning it over to wattage mode. And I'm just going to leave it down there pretty low on 10 watts. Yeah, I'm going to fire it gently. And you can see some juice kind of being cooked off, and the gunk is being cooked. And I'm not like necessarily firing it a whole lot right away. I'm kind of just pulse vaping it. And then I'm going to kind of blow on it. I'm not going to put it close to my face, like really close or anything, but just kind of blow on it as I'm pulse vaping it in like a few seconds at a time, and see how it heats up. And let's see here. As a matter of fact, it's not heating up, so I might have an issue with this one here, but let's just see here if I can turn it up a little bit. So anyway, so sometimes they can have an issue. In this case here, this one stopped firing. And I'm going to go ahead and take a pair of tweezers, just try to adjust it, see if I can. And I don't want to fire it when I'm putting the tweezers on there. You might want to be cautious of what you're doing exactly, but just make sure you're being cautious and know what you're doing if you're doing anything like this. So I'm just trying to put the springs of the coils back, trying to position them just a little bit and see if maybe possibly there's something that got disrupted, etc. So still reading at 0.5, so let's try to fire. Okay, so now it's heating up. So now I can see it heating up there. And like I said, I'm just doing pulse vapes. I don't want to like way overheat it, because I don't want to like get the coil all brittle and worn out, and you know, it cracks or gets too messed up. So I'm just kind of pulse vaping it and blowing on it a little bit to get debris off of there. Like that. So, and right now it's on 12 watts because I wanted to have it a little bit higher than what I originally had it on. I don't want to do it like too many times, but a good few times to kind of clean it off. Now, if I really wanted to go through the trouble, I could take this atomizer back out of here and rinse it off of the water and get it pretty dry, make sure it's dry, and then put it back on here, and that way I can get any excess juice, dirty juice that could have been built up in here. Right now, I don't feel like it's real bad, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave it the way it is. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and wick, put a piece of wicking material right in there in that metal, right in that metal coil. So I'm going to take a piece of cotton, and this is just cotton ball from the store, so it's nothing real fancy. Now you can get cotton pads and all that stuff, and what's that? Yeah, and you can get organic cotton too as well. But so I'm going to kind of just gently take, not too much cotton, because these wicks don't need to be like really thick. You know, they need to get a little bit of breathability, maybe, right? So I'm taking a piece of cotton here and just kind of stretching it out a little bit, maybe taking a little bit of it off, so I don't want to have too thick of a piece, because I'm going to kind of double it over, like that, see, and try to hopefully get it to where it's somewhat thin, but thick enough to be a reasonable little piece as it goes through, because I want to be able to fit it through the small coils. So I'm going to take the end here and just kind of, you know, I'm going to kind of make it, the whole thing a little thin if I can, just enough, so I know that I'll feel like it'll go through well. And hopefully this will be good enough. But I'm going to twirl the end here, and then I'm going to thread it through this coil right here. So I'm going to try to get it to go all the way through, so I can, and then as soon as I get it through, I'm going to kind of pull it through with the tweezers. Let's see if I can do this. In this case here, I'm going to go this way. Okay. So we got it through. Now I've got a little piece of it through there, and now I'm going to take the tweezers, and I want to make sure my tweezers are clean. If I have to, I'll fire them with a lighter and then wipe them with a napkin, stuff like that. Right now I think they're okay, but just gently pull this piece of cotton through. Now I have to work it through a little bit, and I can see there's a little bit of dirt on the end of my tweezers that's getting onto that wick, so I'm going to go ahead and clean the tweezers real quick, just by really kind of, in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and wipe them, and it should be enough. But, like I said, sometimes I'll hold a lighter to them and just kind of heat them up and then wipe off all the soot as best I can, and that way it's a pretty clean. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this the rest of the way through, hopefully. Get right up to it and pull it through, try to get the whole thread through as much as I can. I'm going to put it up here and just do it the rest of the way. And if I need to, I'll grab another utensil. In this case, another small screwdriver that's also clean. And I'm going to put it in here just to kind of hold one side of the coil in kind of towards the center of the atomizer, so that way it's not being pulled to the side too much and being disrupted. So hopefully I don't mess it up. So let's go ahead and do that. Hopefully I have an idea. It's hard to really show you that, but let me just try to pull it the rest of the way through gently, pulling it close to the root of the wicking material as you can, kind of close to the center, and holding the wicks to the middle, gently pulling it through. So, and kind of got it through enough right now. I might pull it through just a little more, kind of pull on this side just down, make sure it's positioned well, and just pull it through a little bit more. Not much, really. Right there. And now that I've got the material in there, see how we got it. And like I said, I didn't make it real thick. That way I was able to pull it through reasonably easy. But it's just thick enough to where it's going to make sure it covers each side of this little exit way on each side, so that juice doesn't leak in through there without going through the wicking material. In other words, it starts getting flooded, if that makes sense. So now I got those on there. And then I'm going to put this little cap back on top of the atomizer. This little cap that goes over at the top. Like I said, this is an evic VT, and you can check out some of my other videos too as well. And I encourage you to add me on Facebook as well at CoolMTN. Facebook.com/CoolMTN. Certainly will enjoy meeting up with other people, vapors, of course, maybe that are like-minded and so forth. And anyway, like I said, Facebook, but also I have some other videos too I'm going to make as well. But you can see how we put that housing on top of there. Now you can see on the inside, the coils are not perfectly silver because we just kind of charred them, to get that material off, the dirty stuff off of there. But they're clean enough. We put the cotton in there. And now I'm going to go ahead and snip the sides of this material with a pair of snips. Like I said, clean ones. And I think these are pretty clean. I'm going to go ahead and just double check because I don't want to have to do this over. And just kind of wipe some of the gunk. And there is a little bit of gunk on there. But it should be okay if I just clean them real good. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and snip with these snips right here. I'm going to snip not super close, but basically right up to the metal on each side with this. So you can see, I go right here. I'm going to clip, I'm going to leave maybe a little excess, just a little drop, just so I can doctor it. And you can see I pull it, I clip that bit off there, so there's just a little bit of fuzz sticking out. And like I said, I'm going to do a little bit of fine tuning on that in just a second, but I'm going to do the other side right now. See this side right here, just take that and do like I said, just a little bit away from the metal, just enough to leave yourself a little bit of play so you can kind of tweak it at the end. Now I'm going to cut off a little excess that was built. You can see it's just sticking out a little bit. I don't want it to be sticking out too much to where it gets messed up when I put it on the tank. So just clipping off a little bit right there. Same thing on the other side, just fine tuning it to make sure there's not any excess fuzz coming out of there. And then we're going to go ahead and take this screwdriver. I'll make sure no excess thread is sticking off there. Take the screwdriver and just kind of spread that wicking material to the sides a little bit, so as make sure it's blocking the hole in that side well, so that the no juice is kind of getting in there without going through the wicking material, because otherwise it'll flood and you'll get juice in your tank. So anyway, this side here needed to be spread out a little more. Little piece of material. I don't want that excess material in there, so make sure it's cleaned up, and then do the same thing. Just kind of spread it out to the sides gently. Okay, so it looks like I basically got it. This one here could use a slight. Okay, anyway, slight trim, but I think it's enough. I don't want to have too much excess sticking out, like I say, because otherwise it'll get might mess up the. You want the juice to flow in there well. So you can see both sides of the threads, at least, and they're white. You got a fresh thread in there. Now, like I said, different atomizers, you might have different ways of doing this, but you have to kind of inspect the atomizer, or maybe even find a specific video, but sometimes that's hard to do. But anyway, so we got new wicking material in there. Now we're going to go ahead and prime the atomizer, which with this doesn't have a real huge thread. I mean, some people feel like, oh, I got to have so much cotton and have this great atom, it's going to give you so much more flavor. And to be honest, I feel like with the smaller thread, it's kind of better, because more buildup of juice. Like, and this is easier to rethread. It's just, from my perspective, that's what I like. It's more convenient for me. But I'm going to take a little bit of juice and go ahead and put just some juice. I'm going to put some on the side and right down the center. So I'm going to put some right in here on top of this piece of cotton, just a drop or two to start, let it soak in. And so I just want to make sure the whole cotton's just got some juice in it. And like I said, I didn't put too much cotton to where it's so tight that the juice can't soak in well. Right? That was part of the reason why we used, you know, not a super thick piece of cotton. So it's soaking in well. Put another drop up there. Let it soak in again. So I know it's getting into the center of this wick. Up here, same thing. Let it soak in for a moment. Okay, and then I might put a drop or two in the top, just to get right on the center of the wick. Not too much, because I don't want it to be all flooded with juice in here. Because I might want to dry this off a little bit before I put, you know, before I start vaping well. So anyway, close that up. Then we've got a tank with a little bit of juice. Let me put a little more juice in here. Okay. And I'm not necessarily going to fill up my tank that much. I mean, I might want to, for one thing, I might want to remove any last bit of like older juice that was in this tank that got kind of caramelized or dirty, or might not be the best flavor or whatever. But I'm putting a little bit of extra juice. I want to make sure I have some juice to vape and get this thing working well and everything. And I don't really like to ever fill up my tank all the way, because I like to have a little bit of space that the juice can fall away from the atomizer. So when I put it together, sometimes when I'm vaping upside down for that, so that way I keep it from flooding, if that makes sense. But anyway, let me go ahead and take a piece of paper, and you always want to have paper ready to go because you want to dry stuff out. In this case here, I'm going to go ahead and just dry out the stem of this tank, which I can just run a piece of paper through here and dry that out. That way there's no excess, just little juice as possible inside of the stem of your tank, inside there, because when you start vaping, you don't want to have any flooding or dripping of juice, etc. So anyway, so I did that. Now I don't want to turn this right side up, obviously, because I don't want to spill the juice out. And like I said, I only filled it up about a third of the way. It doesn't have that much juice in it, because like I said, I want to make sure I'm getting good flavor, and I want to kind of prime up my atomizer, and it makes it a little bit easier for me to do what's called dry vaping. Now, as long as my wicks are not sticking out too much, I did them, I think they look pretty good to me. I'm going to go ahead and put them right in here in the tank. Gently twist the tank on, kind of make sure that, I don't want to squeeze those threads to the side or mess them up or alter them, really. So I try to gently put it on. Made sure my atomizer was in there tight enough, hopefully. And also want to make sure it's reading my atomizer, which it still is. And right now it's reading at a 0.6. So you can see what I was doing. It went from a 0.53 to a 0.6 because the ohmage got adjusted a little bit for whatever reason. And that's fine. I can work with that. But I'm going to go ahead and take this again. Now that I got it together, I'm just going to gently, and maybe even take the little piece of paper, because I just used this. I don't want that juice to get up in there when I get juice out, right? So I'm going to just gently kind of run that in there now, because I put it together, not much, because I don't want to go in there and reach and hit that atomizer. And there's a little bit of like black stuff coming off, because when I didn't really like rinse the atomizer totally, and that's fine. But that's the reason why I'm doing this, just so I can kind of get any little bit of junk. And that's the reason why you always want to be cleaning out this area consistently with some paper, and especially if you feel like you're getting any flooding. Now, if you're doing this right and you know how to vape well, you won't get much flooding. You can see there's a little bit of this blackened stuff coming off the end that was from in there, and that's probably what was on the coils, had some kind of ash and stuff like that. So when I kind of heated up that coil, it left some ash and soot a little bit. Yeah, so I'm not too worried about it, though, because when I start vaping, it'll generally clean up as long as I know how to vape it well. But do one more little piece of paper, and like I said, I'm just gently dabbing it in there, just because it's going in there and touching those metal coils. I don't want to damage anything in there too much, so I'm not going to be twisting it real hard and all that stuff. Just gently kind of dab it in there to soak up any juice. Now I have a mouthpiece, a tip right here. It also has some juice left on it from when I was the previous vaping, and it's kind of dirty juice too, because you can see the coils were all dirty, and so any juice is leaking out of the stem of your vapor. It's it's got mixed in with all that junk, and it's just dirty. So I want to make sure I clean all this well. I could even rinse it off, but for practicality, I don't really need to do it. I'm pretty good at cleaning it like this. Take a fresh piece of paper in this case, and I'm kind of meticulous about it, and it is good to be, because then you'll get better flavor. much better flavor on every vape. You'll start finding that your atomizer lasts longer. So I'm doing this and just making sure that's all dried off of dirty juice. So, in other words, I've cleaned this apparatus really well, pretty well, considering that I haven't totally like cleaned it with rinsing and alcohol or something like that. But anyway, so I put the mouthpiece on the tip. And this has airflow on the side right here too, and sometimes juice can kind of leak out and around here. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and take that. So I've got the rig kind of just reset up with a brand new atomizer. I go ahead and I'm just giving you some ideas here on how to generally keep your atomizer and your vapor working better and longer and better flavor, and be able to not have to replace your atomizer so long, or to be able to hopefully rebuild it if you can. Now, so anyway, so I wiped some juice off the sides here, just trying to make sure the juice, and I'm even going to take this tank off, and I'm going to hold it upside down so I don't want to accidentally open up the tank, right? So with your vapor, if that's, you know, you want to make sure that you're taking the whole thing off in this case, because you don't want to lose any juice, you don't want to accidentally spill it. So now I'm taking the whole thing off of the battery, the whole thing with the base and everything, so that I can make sure there's no juice in there, and you can see there's some juice. We don't want that buildup of juice. So it's important to make sure you're always checking and inspecting and kind of just keeping your battery and the whole apparatus dry and clean of juice. Even maybe take a little piece of paper and go right in there to the connection, because there could be some juice that gets right in there and could be kind of messing up your vape in some way a little bit with the firing. So anyways, clean that juice off there. Now the whole thing is completely dry, right? So this is vital. Now, I'm also going to make sure my air holes are open, at least enough to where, depending on my rig, in this case here, this one usually goes open all the way or pretty close, so I'll kind of close it just a little bit so I get a slightly tighter draw. And I'll do a dry vape. Like that. So, now that's just a dry draw. I'm not firing it. You know, that's just to kind of make sure I'm getting some reasonable airflow going through there, the vents open well, and all that stuff. I can kind of gauge what kind of vacuum of suction is created. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn it back into temperature mode, and this particular mod has temperature control. Not all mods will have temperature control. If you're not on temperature control, you want to be more cautious about how you're vaping so you're not burning your wicking material, your atomizer, by either going too high or vaping without juice inside of the tank, or enough juice, or you're vaping at an angle and you got real low amount of juice in there, stuff like that. You don't want to burn your atomizer because it'll give you a bad flavor. So anyway, so I'm going to turn this to temperature control mode. This takes 3 clicks. Go over to titanium because it has nickel too. So I'm 450 degrees. Now I have a new atomizer in here. I know it's not going to have as much resistance. It's going to be easier. So I'm going to start off at a low temp, in this case about 280. And I'm going to just warm it up. Like I said, a dry vape, and then fire it a little bit. Not giving me any vapor. Oh, and as a matter of fact, it needs the setting to set a new coil, so I need to do that too. See, right away, as soon as I do that, it started giving me a little vapor. I only took a pulse vape because the temperature could be too high for some reason, for whatever reasons. I don't want to accidentally burn this wick. So I'm just taking a pulse vape, taking a couple test pulse vapes to see if I can get some of the juice kind of warmed up and going through the wick well, and then I can move up the temperature a little bit. So, see, I'm getting a little bit of vapor. It's kind of warming up the wick. And let me move this up here so you can see this a little bit better. Not the best scenario here, but... Okay, so we take the vape now that we got it. We're going to go ahead and... Now we want to make sure we're getting all the stuff kind of cleaned out. We're starting to warm up and prime the wick. See, it's giving me a little bit of vapor already, even at a low temp of 280 degrees, which I normally might have it up to 350, 400, or even higher. So let's just do a couple more vapes. Not really giving me much. It's very, very little, right? So now I'm going to bump it up maybe 10 degrees, because this goes in increments of 10. I might do it up to 20, but I'm not going to do more than that. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and do 20, though, because I'm just starting out. I feel like I have a little bit more room to play. If I get closer to the area where what we call the sweet spot, I'll want to be a little bit more cautious. So now it's at 300. See, now it's giving me a little bit thicker of a cloud. So, and now that I just started it up and I just got a couple little warm vapes out of it, I'm going to go and just gently take them and put this paper in here and just kind of keep I want to make sure it's not like dripping a lot of juice for some reason. Maybe I didn't get the wicking material in there right or something like that. So, but anyway, it seems to be good. I'm not leaking a lot of juice, but there is a little bit of that gunk coming off of that coil in there that had some junk. So essentially I'm kind of like rinsing off that area with fresh juice right now. So I'm going to go ahead and put this mouthpiece back on here at 300 degrees. Give me a little bit of vapor, not much flavor. Right, so I can feel I need to warm it up to really be able to cook the juice. Now I'm going to go 10 to maybe 20 degrees at a time. If I feel like I'm away from the sweet spot, I got a little bit more time to go, I can maybe go up to 28 degrees at a time. I'm going to take some intermediate puffs, because as I'm puffing at the lower temperatures, I might be leaving behind thicker juice that's building up inside the wick. And I don't want to necessarily go too high too fast. I kind of warm up to the next temperature level. So now I'm at 310, right? Let's take a couple there. Now to 320. 330. The idea is to get it to where it's giving me a good full flavored vape. 340. Now you go bump up to 350. Give me a little bit of cloud. 360. Right, 360, 370. I probably started about 380, 400. See, about there, I can feel like it's actually kind of vaping the full element of the juice a little bit more, because like I said, if you're vaping at low temperature, it's just vaping thin elements of the juice. Maybe the flavoring, the PG, the thinner parts of the juice are vaping a little faster. Then it's leaving thick buildup. So you want to make sure you're vaping it at a high enough temperature to cook or vape the whole element of the juice, but not so high that it's burning it too much. So you want to keep the juice fluidly going through the atomizer. So you can see here we got juice that's right now, when it's right side up, the juice is sitting right on top of the wick. So that means there's juice constantly right on top of the wicking material. Now if you want to give it more airflow and really just kind of vape the juice that's in the wick itself, we want to do what's called a dry vape. So that way all the juice, excess juice that's in the tank, falls away from the wick. Now you got plenty of juice in the wick usually to take a few vapes. Now by doing that, like I said, you're just basically vaping up the juice that's in the wick, and then you're kind of re-soaking it. Now, do you mean you're constantly doing an upside down dry vape? No, not necessarily. You do plenty of vapes like this too, but you want to regularly do that to kind of clean out the atomizer from any old juice kind of that builds up in layers, etc. And that means you're going to have to adjust the temperature a little bit sometimes, up or down, just a little bit to get just right. But anyway, so like I said, I'm at 370 right now. Think about the people you know who do e-cigarette and don't really know these things. They don't really know how to, tag them or get them this video, so that way they can learn a few of the elements of how to vape better and make their wicks last longer. You get better flavor, but not only that, but now you're not breathing in some of those carcinogens that can build up with a dirty, burnt atomizer that a lot of people get, because they may not understand why you want to be at just the right temperature, etc. Right? Not too hot. You want to be able to get a warm vape that's giving you full flavor, but you don't want it to be too hot, right? So anyway, like I said, I'm at 370. I might move it up here in a minute. I'm going to take a couple more vapes. Give me a little bit of cloud. I don't consider it to be like a real thick cloud, right, or real warm. I'm putting it at 380. $390. There I feel like it's a little bit more like on the warmer. It's getting a little bit warmer. Now, I do 400. I certainly will feel it kind of edge right into the thicker parts of the juice, because the juice can have different elements, usually even sometimes a 30-70 blend, 70% VG, which is thicker juice, and the PG is a little thinner. So, like I say, it can kind of, like you're vaping through it, you're probably going to be vaping some of that PG up faster, which might contain more of the flavor. So sometimes when you're dry vaping and you're getting all the juice out of the wick, you'll feel like the flavor kind of goes away a little bit. But it's not burnt, because you're vaping up a bunch of thick VG buildup that gets inside the wick. Like I said, you want to gently vape it out completely. That way when you re-soak it with juice, the juice is all fresh juice soaking right into the atomizer wick. So anyway, so like I said, I'm at 400 now. Right, now if I really want to try to chase a cloud or something like that, I could turn it up a little bit more, kind of get some thicker vapes going and kind of work it. But right now I'm going to turn it to 410 and maybe even 420. Right. See, now I do an upside down vape, the juice, and I don't have that much juice in there, so it falls away from the wick. It's actually going to give me a bigger cloud because now there's a little bit of airflow kind of in a way, if that makes sense. Right here when it's smothered with juice, it's kind of like you're smothering the fireplace. You're not going to get, you need to have a little airflow in the mix. Now you have this airflow vents, that's the one thing. And then with the airflow, as you draw it faster, the airflow going over the coils actually cools them down significantly. So the faster you draw it, it has a subtle effect of kind of cooling it down as you vape. And so you might draw sometimes a little bit slower because you want to have a warmer vape, kind of depending on how you're vaping. So you want to tweak it just right. But like I said, you want to do a lot of dry vaping regularly and kind of dry vaping out the wick, but not so much that it's burnt because you don't want it to get burnt. Now, if you're temperature controlled, usually it protects you from that pretty good. But you don't want to make sure you go too high too fast because you could still, even with the temperature control, still heat up too quick and burn it. So you want to be, like I said, approaching from the bottom, kind of approaching to the sweet spot, the heat point where it's just generally vaping up all the juice at one time, if that makes sense. Kind of like two pieces of metal. One's like magnesium, the other one's copper, and they're like fused together, and if you try to heat them up with a lighter or a torch, one will melt faster than the other. So it's like you got VG and PG, right? So one will vape faster than the other. So you got to kind of get it up to a temperature that's, hot enough to melt the harder metal, but not so hot that it's extremely hot and it's really kind of burning up the softer metal. You want to be right there at a sweet spot that kind of vapes it evenly or burns it evenly, right? So if that makes any sense. But just a few ideas here. So like I said, I'm at 400, 410. Home rebuilt, we rewick the atomizer. You can also rebuild the coils, but if you just do this gently with most coils that you can rewick, you won't have to rebuild them very much, or ever. Like with me, I just rewick it a few times, and if it starts messing up, I'll just throw it away and get some new ones, because they're only a couple bucks each. And you can order them online, too. Go on eBay to search for all your supplies. So anyway. See, 410. If I can bump it up a little bit, like I said, one notch, 10 degrees at a time, to where if I feel like it's too warm, it's giving me some gurgle or something like that. Now, I don't feel like I'm getting real significant flooding, but like I said, you want to regularly have a paper ready, just once again, and kind of do it regularly, because especially if you feel like there's any gurgle or flooding, and clean it out. Now, right here, I'm not really getting much juice. This is only a little bit, so that's okay, because I took a few vapes. I don't feel like that's much. And then if I put that up there gently, I get a little bit more. It's not a whole lot. Now, if it's a lot, then I feel like, yeah, it's losing a lot of juice. I'm soaking up a lot of juice. I'm losing juice, right? If it's only a little bit here and there, then it makes sense that it's just humidity and so forth. So anyway, so I'm at 420. Let's take another vape. See, I get a nice full cloud, nice, more full flavor. I'm at 420, so I'm maybe a little more on the warm side. I could even, if I take another one at 430, but I don't want to go up much more than that probably, because right now it feels like I'm right there at the sweet spot, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, now I'm just doing this kind of at this angle, 45 degrees, 30 degrees, somewhere right there. I keep juice off of it when I'm taking some of the vapes. I don't want to have smothered vapes really all the time. I want to have, I'm vaping up all the juice out of it, and then I'm re-soaking it with juice a lot of times. I'm doing it kind of like, that's my thought pattern. I'm not always perfect about that, because I'm taking a lot of regular vapes too, where I'm right side up. And I'm always keeping it kind of generally at a 45 degree angle. Alright. there's just a few tips on how to make your atomizer vape smoother, better flavor, and like I said, you don't want it to get black like that, you know. Now, my atomizers, myself, and it's not my particular one that got like that, but I generally am able to keep them pretty clean by regularly dry vaping all the juice out, and which kind of cleans off the coils too, and then getting fresh juice on it, so it's rinsing it off, and then doing that a few times, and really cleaning out the stem with paper each time, because little juice gets in there each time, and a lot of times that's your dirtiest juice and excess stuff that can get there. Soaking that out, shortcuts, it helps you get stuff out, and it brings back your flavor. This thing's vaping great. So anyway, hopefully that helps. And like I said, check out my other videos. Add me on Facebook, CoolMTN. And look forward to maybe hearing some comments if this hopefully helps you in some ways. And hopefully you're not breathing in as many carcinogens because you're learning how to vape better, smoother, and you're making your juice last longer. You're getting a more full-flavored vape. And also, like I said, I recommend searching for all your juices. Maybe try eBay. You can find a lot of different flavors and with the nicotine levels that you need for a good price, and different really supplies that you might need as well, like your coils, etc. So thanks for listening to this message. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. It's Micah Carter signing out, and I certainly look forward to hearing from you all some feedback and talking to you all again. Have a great one.